Christians, how do you feel about the judge in Kentucky who was executed by the sheriff? Now, if you don't know the particulars of this story, I will break them down for you first so that you are in clear understanding of it. So according to the information that we have right now, and some more information I'm sure will come out, there's a judge in Kentucky, and a sheriff who has a young daughter found out that this judge has been essaying people. Now, the sheriff found out there's some information. We do not know all the information yet that he found out. He may have found out that his daughter may have been one of the people that were essayed. You see, one thing that I did find out is that this sheriff used to be a bailiff to this judge, that this sheriff was friends with this judge. And upon learning that he had been essaying people, don't know if he found out by talking to his daughter or through some other means, went to the courthouse, went into the side room where the judges and the bailiffs have their own private little room, asked the other bailiffs to leave, and then judiciously executed this judge for his crimes of essaying other women or his own daughter. We don't know yet. So Christians, I'm going to tell you my thoughts on it at the end of the video, but Christians, if you are truly a believer in your Bible, what do you say about that? How do you feel about that? According to your Bible, when you read in Leviticus, it tells you that if a young woman who has not been betrothed to a man is essayed by another man, then the man merely pays the father the bride price for the daughter, and then the young girl has to marry her essayist. He can never divorce her, and he must perform his husbandly duties to her, meaning that he has to provide her children a roof over her head and subsistence and so on and so forth. The only other parts of the Bible that you may try to draw parallels to this story, and first we'll stick with the Old Testament before we go to the New Testament, is that you do have the situation where Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, was essayed by someone of a different tribe. At first, an agreement was made that if all the men in that tribe were to circumcise themselves and make themselves Hebrew, then they will have a marriage between Dinah and the young prince of that town, and they will become one people. After the men agreed to this, and the men of that town were circumcised, two of the brothers of Dinah went and executed all the men of that town. So in that case, someone of a different tribe essaying your daughter, you are permitted to execute them. Now, when we go further into the Old Testament and Judges, when a concubine is essayed until she died, this is Judges 19, because the man who was in the house, the man was threatened by the other men of the town, and when they were offered the concubine, then they essayed her, they agreed to it and essayed her to death. It's basically a retelling of the Lot story with a few changes. The body of the young lady was then sent to the other 12 tribes. Then they came and they genocided that town rather. Now, once they genocided that town, these are found out to be Benjamins, members of the children of Israel. And so then after the war was over, the battles were over, it was found that the men of Benjamin needed wives. So first they went and genocided some other towns and took the young girls who had not known a man as their wives, still found themselves without enough wives. And so they then went and kidnapped some other women and essayed them to make them their wives. So in this instance, we have some genocide, but we also have taking of these other women, I believe at Shiloh, while they were out dancing. And then just told, don't worry about it. They needed some more wives. How about you just let them keep them? So we actually have a conflict of thought in this story. And the closest two things I can find in the New Testament that came right off the top of my head, there may be something else, is that when the woman was brought up to Jesus, Yeshua, for committing adultery, well, adultery can only be committed by women. You see, women were property of men. And if a woman was the property of a man, whether a daughter or a wife, only the woman was brought to be stoned, because only the woman had committed adultery. You see, a man cannot commit adultery. He has sex with a woman. She either becomes his wife or the woman has committed adultery. Now, the dude actually did commit adultery. So I always question why the man wasn't brought there if the woman was already married to someone else. But in most cases, men are not punished for adultery. Men are not punished for essaying someone. And of course, Yeshua gives the statement, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." So they all walked away. Don't kill anybody. You could take that approach. The only other one, which is a bit of a reach, would be the Samaran woman at the well. You see, this woman had been freely having sex with different men, most likely gaining some type of monetary resources for doing so. She was embarrassed of her lifestyles, and that's why she came to the well at the hottest part of the day when the other women would not be there, because the other women looked at her as what she was, a prostitute, selling her body for money, for goats and cattle and food and whatever else. And Jesus told her to stop sinning. But that one does not draw even close to a parallel, because this woman willingly was having sex with these men. So Christians, which side of the fence are you going to jump on for this one? Or are you going to straddle the fence? Are you going to straddle the fence between our customs and culture and our rules and laws today? Or are you going to straddle it based on your Bible? Are you going to look at the story of Dana? Are you going to look at what Leviticus says and say that that sheriff was wrong? When you look at Leviticus, say that the sheriff was wrong and should not have executed that judge? Or are you going to say that he was right, just as the brothers of Dana executed those men? Or are you going to say, I'm going to straddle the fence on this one, like the men in the tribe of Benjamin who essayed the concubine, but then stole some other women and made them their wives? Which one are you going to do? Now, as far as me and my thoughts, I have nothing but praise for that sheriff. Whether this judge had essayed his daughter or not, but was essaying other women, I think that this sheriff should be recognized as a hero, because he has saved probably many other women from being essayed by this judge who utilized his power and position to take advantage of women, to take advantage of people. And that this sheriff did the right thing. I know that our custom and our culture says that the judge should have been brought up on charges, arrested, go through a trial, and in prison, and then the state, or the jury, and then the state determines whether or not he should be executed. Sometimes, and I believe that that is the system, and we should follow that system 99% of the time. But there are those times when we need to dispense with that. And that is very rare, because it is a very, very, very slippery slope. And I am not necessarily condoning it in all situations, in most situations. But I do know that if it had been me, if I found out that someone essayed one of my girls or my son, I am not waiting on a jury trial. I am not waiting on someone sitting on death row for decades. They will meet whoever they believe their maker is most immediately. So tell me what you guys think. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.